Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Bastard Review. This time around I'm looking at WCW's Halloween Havoc 91. This event took place October 27th, 1991 in the UTC Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Just as the show starts, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone talk about Barry Windham's injury at the hands of Arn Anderson and show video of the attack earlier in the night with Eric Bischoff doing his best to narrate on the scene. Therefore, Barry wouldn't be participating in the first match of the night. Sting, Rick and Scott Steiner, and El Gigante take on Abdullah the Butcher, Cactus Jack, Big Van Vader, and the Diamond Stud, who you might recognize as Scott Hall in a Chamber of Horrors match. In layman's terms, this is a steel cage match with weapons, and the object is to put an opponent into the chair of torture and pull the fatal lever, simulating an electrocution for the win. And as if things can't get goofy enough, not only is everyone introduced in a weird order, I'm assuming in order of prominence. When Sting comes out and beats his chest, his US title pops off, falling to the ground, which gives me a great chuckle. Talk about a gimmick stipulation that might have sounded good on paper that really doesn't work in execution. When the chair is lowered from the ceiling, there's next to no room in the ring. This would have hardly worked with 2 people, let alone 8. There's simply no room to do anything of significance. On a side note, they introduce a ref cam which gives you a first-person perspective of the match, as though you're the ref, which I do find interesting, though at times discombobulating. The end sees Rick and Abdullah fighting near the chair with Cactus Jack at the lever, and just as it looks like Rick is going to get electrocuted, he spins Abdullah around, putting him in the chair, and Jack pulls the lever, thinking it's still Rick. The only horror involved here is having to sit through it all. Just a completely corny clusterfuck of a match. I laughed more than I did cheer. I'm giving this a 3 out of 10. It looks like they cut 2 matches from the video, but thankfully they're nothing I really had a potential interest in, so I'm not complaining. After that, Jimmy Garvin takes on Johnny B. Bad, who eventually goes by Mark Marrow in the WWF. It's kind of odd to see Mark so flamboyant as Johnny, but okay. The match is pretty average, with nothing really exciting or inspiring apart from Jimmy getting a DDT and cover, only for Johnny's manager Teddy Long to draw attention from the ref and miss the count. The end sees Johnny pick up the victory afterwards with a left punch, and it's over like that. I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. Up next, stunning Steve Austin defends his WCW World TV title against Dustin Rhodes in a fun, entertaining match. Imagine that, Stone Cold versus Goldust 4 years prior. Both men start off strong, vying for dominance through a series of chain wrestling moves. Later in the match, as he's fighting Dustin outside the ring, Steve busts him open with multiple strikes to the head. There's a nice duel between them for a roll-up pin, where each cover gets to 2.5 before it's countered into another roll-up. Not to be outdone, Dustin sends Steve into the outside of a turnbuckle post, busting him open as well. The end sees both men go to a time limit draw, which I can live with. A good match between 2 up-and-coming wrestlers. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. It looks like they cut some more matches from the video I have, which is kind of a shame since I would have liked to have seen Brian Pillman win the first light heavyweight title against Ricky Morton, especially after the next match. Tom Z-Man Zank takes on, God, I can't believe I'm saying this, the premiering WCW Halloween Phantom. Think of the Black Scorpion only with no discernible target to focus on. The Phantom makes short work of Zank, and I'm not going to rate it because it doesn't even last 2 minutes. All I'm going to say is that I would have been embarrassed to premiere in WCW like this. After that, the enforcers of Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko defend their WCW World Tag Team titles against the Patriots of Tom Champion and Firebreaker Chip, and I gotta wonder if the Patriots realize how goofy they look dressed as a fireman and a soldier. At the time, the Patriots were the US Tag Team Champions, and I really have to question the logic of the US Tag Champs facing the World Tag Champs when it's not even a unification match. WWE does this a lot, and it just boggles the mind. The match starts off decent, and while Arn and Larry dominate most of the time, Todd and Chip manage to hold their own. Arn goes to set up a pile driver against Todd on the outside mat, but Todd does a nice back body drop reversal. At one point, Larry gives Todd what looks like a half-assed backbreaker, but gets a suplex counter a few minutes later. The end sees the Enforcers retain when Arn gives Chip a spinebuster, which is no surprise. What does surprise me is that this match wasn't as awful as I expected it to be. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Then Eric Bischoff, dressed as Dracula, isn't Eric a bloodsucker anyway? Stands around as Paulie dangerously does what Eric's been supposedly trying to do all night, unmask the Phantom, and who is it but Ravishing Rick Rude? Honestly, they should have done this either after him beating Tom Zank, or just replace the match with it. Finally, we come to the main event. Yes, the main event. Lex Luger defends his WCW World Heavyweight title against Ron Simmons in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Prior to the match, they show a little montage for Ron, which really should have come earlier in the night, possibly opening it to hype this match. Things start off slow with each man feeling the other out, with neither really gaining the upper hand. The first fall comes in Ron's favor when he gives Lex a spinebuster, which honestly doesn't really excite me, especially when Arn picked up a win in the previous match doing the exact same thing. Should have used a different move, Ron. From there, things pick up with Ron dominating for a bit and going for quick covers while the crowd gets riled. Then Lex gains the momentum and uses some good underhanded tactics against Ron. The second fall is kinda lame. Lex comes at Ron for what looks like a clothesline against the ropes, but Harley Race, who came down with Luger, holds on to Ron's trunks, seemingly out of sight of the ref, and Lex is the only one who goes over the ropes. Thus, Luger wins by disqualification. Lex opens up the third round with a cheap shot punch, but Ron bounces back and gives Luger a nice superplex that the crowd eats up. The final fall sees Lex give Ron a piledriver for the pin after having sent him into a turnbuckle seconds prior. If they really wanted to build Ron and make him main event material, they should have had Lex pick up the second fall with a pin, and then book the third fall draw by doubled countout. Then have Ron get a definitive title match at Starrcade, which would help to elevate him. Instead, it felt like WCW was just supplying Lex with an opponent to beat, and that's a missed opportunity. I enjoyed the match, but it could have been so much more memorable. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Overall, WCW's Halloween Havoc 91 is a barely above average show. There's a lot of potential here, but it's almost all overshadowed by the hokey stuff. I don't think any of these matches have a real story behind them, or even vignettes, and that's a shame. I would have cut away the silly stuff and reshuffled things a little. When the biggest thing on your card seems to be finding out who a masked Phantom is, you know you have problems, Halloween season or not. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Please tune in again when I review another wrestling DVD in my collection or anything else that crosses my path.